Hello, welcome everyone. We are kicking things off this Thursday morning, June 25th.
Hi, yeah, thanks everybody for joining this month's ObservePoint Tips webinar on frameworks. Today we're going to introduce you to and walk you through some of the resources that are at your disposal to feel a little bit more confident in how to use ObservePoint to achieve your team's goals and your company goals. I'm Macy, a success manager who probably works with some of you in attendance. Say hi in the chat if we work together or have worked together. And hosting with me today is Dylan Sellers, who's our VP of Customer Success. So we want to give everybody a minute or two to trickle in, maybe kick over here from other meetings. So while we give it a minute or so, I'm curious to hear who is everybody's favorite for the World Cup this year. With us being based out of the US, it's been super fun to see all of the tourists here and the events and interactions going on. I grew up playing soccer, and so it's really exciting for me to watch, and especially to see some world records being set in this year's tournament, as well as some teams that have never made it through, making it through this year. So yeah, Dylan, have you been watching?
I've been watching, I'm super lazy, so I watch the highlights on YouTube after the games with my
Yeah.
kids, but my kids are super little and they're getting into soccer. I remember vividly, I was actually in Brazil during the 2014 FIFA World Cup, and I could tell you the passion from Brazil for soccer is out of this world. So I'm all in on Brazil this year. Heard they had a great game yesterday. I still need to catch up on the highlights. Um, but super fun, super fun. I love that. I wish the World Cup came more frequently, but every 4 years it's a party.
I know it came up so fast too. I would have gotten tickets. I definitely would have gotten tickets if I was more prepared for it, but it was just suddenly happening. So, um okay, well we'll go ahead and get started here. So, for today's agenda, we're going to start with going over some recent product releases. Then we're going to introduce frameworks, what they are, go through a demo, and show you how to use frameworks to actually start building an observe point, and then how to remediate based on what you find. And we'll save some time for Q&A at the end. So first, with our recent product releases, we've gotten an update to our reporting UI. Our gallery reports, or in other words, our pre-built templates that we have available for you to use, have gotten an update. We now have descriptions for every single pre-built report, as well as we have these banners, which will let you know what are our most used reports, as well as what are any newly added reports. We'll show you if there's any charts associated with the report. So think line graphs, bar charts, pie charts, etc. The use cases that the report is used for, associated with. And then as you interact with these gallery reports, customize them, add filters, add columns, etc., and then save these reports, we now have a big quality of life update with our saved reports. We now have the ability to add labels here, as well as group by labels, which essentially acts as a folder structure. Biggest benefit of the labels, though, is the same report can have multiple labels, or in other words, exist in multiple folders. Next is we have two new columns for links and cookies. These columns are going to be found specifically in our pages report template. The first is all page cookie. So basically, anytime we have the final page URL listed, this all page cookie column that you can add is quite literally going to list every single cookie found on that page in this one column. So a way that you could use that, for example, here is I have added a filter for all page cookies to only list URLs that do not contain this AMCV cookie. That way, if you have any critical cookies that you're trying to track, um, you can filter that way and see the full list of URLs where that's missing or where a cookie is present.
Yeah, Macy, I want to comment on this one. This is a big, this is an unlock to a really important question that we haven't historically been able to answer super well, which is where all the pages missing a critical or required cookie. And so if you're this applies to privacy compliance, it applies to analytics, of course. And as you're looking for page is missing a specific cookie. Now we can get that list of pages filtered really, really quickly. Notice it's a name domain combination. And so you can use contains logic is probably what we recommend the most to look for a cookie name or when a cookie name is not present on a page. But this is super powerful, unlocks a lot of important questions and that we can answer now. So
Okay, perfect. Similar to this all page cookies column, we also now have an all page links column. I know there's several people I've worked with who, for example, have been trying to find all the pages with a deprecated link or understand how many links exist on a particular page. So that's where this will come in handy. Exact same as the all page cookie. It's literally a column that will list every single link on a page. Anything to add on this one, Dylan?
yeah, another popular use case here, making sure that required like privacy links, for example, are at the footer of every page. This isn't going to tell you where on the page it is, but it's going to confirm or validate that every single page has a privacy link. Maybe it's privacy policy, or maybe you have a specific language that you selected. But on the left in the square brackets is the link text, and on the right is the hyperlink itself. And here again, you're in the pages report type, so you got to go to pages, create a pages report, and then you're going to be able to filter by this column. And you can say, hey, if our required link, we can find every page where we do not find a privacy policy link, for example. Save that, and you'll have an actionable list of pages where we need to go and find out where a privacy policy is missing on our site. So really, really powerful. Or let's say you updated the URL or made some changes, you can make sure you have the latest URL.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for adding that. So yeah, two really simple product update. It's just two columns that we've added to our reporting, but they each can unlock a lot of different use cases. So make sure to read more about that in the announcements section in the platform or work with your CSMs to see if there's anything relevant that you can use these columns for. Last product update is also in our reports. We now have an undo and a redo button. I don't know about anybody else, but for me, this is a huge quality of life update because I am always accidentally deleting filters or adding columns that turn out to not really do what I want them to do. And this makes it so much easier to undo a change or bring something back that you actually accidentally removed.
Yeah, I've been waiting my whole life for this undo button to appear. So great.
Yeah. All right. Well, Dylan, I'll kick it off to you to start introducing frameworks.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Macy. So I just had to say and preface our demo today with I'm so excited about this topic. It's become a passion project of mine, and it's all about solving a really important need inside of the ObservePoint customer experience and user experience, which is helping customers have more confidence in how they're interpreting the data that we're collecting. So ObservePoint is this powerful tool that collects so much data. As a platform, there's a lot of data at your fingertips, so we're going to continue to aggressively collect more and more data on your website. And we're going to make sure now that we add an interpretation layer, and a layer that allows you to confidently get insights and know that those insights are actionable. So what are frameworks? They're a detailed implementation guide for a specific ObservePoint use case that comprises of or includes a set of recommended policies that reference official documentation has been validated by experts in respective industries. So below you can see just snippets of content that's available inside of each framework. Every framework is going to talk about recommended scope and frequency. What's the expert opinion on frequency of testing and the frequency of pages or the scope of pages that should be tested on those frequencies, and what's the purpose of those test frequencies? And on the right, you can see an example of a policy. So this is actually coming from one of our CIPA, California Invasion of Privacy Act framework, and you can see the category or policy of checks that are discussed in the screenshot are chat and form governance. So these are going to be specific checks we're looking for related to forms or chat bots or chat experiences on your website. So there's certain requirements. Every framework is going to consist of a list of requirements, and those are organized in policies. We call those requirements checks. You'll get the vocabulary pretty soon, but we're really excited about bringing, most importantly, expert opinion and official sources behind each of these checks. So we're aggressively researching, as you can see in the screenshot, you can see we're actually citing California Penal Code 631, which is the governing law that the law that governs the California Invasion of Privacy Act, looking at specific requirements. So this is an example of a privacy framework. We're going to demonstrate. We're going to talk about the different varieties of frameworks that we're developing kind of in parallel. So let's go ahead and Macy in the next slide. How we build them. So background on how we build this. I'm actually the primary author of a lot of this content. So I'm intimately involved in the creation of the content and the research that's happening. It's kind of become my doctorate dissertation, basically, is what it, or my doctorate thesis is kind of what it's becoming. But each topic is researched heavily. We do use AI to assist in the research, but we're super, super wary about AI's ability to give us uh, answers that it thinks we'll like, right? If you ask a direct question, it can flip flop actually on its opinion very, very fast, especially when it comes to like a debated legal requirement. So we're very, very cautious about making sure that if we use AI, we're using it to get to official sources, get to good sources. It has to all be grounded in a good source. Second, validated each week, or sorry, each check with official sources. So this is just emphasizing what I said before, but sometimes that official source doesn't exist as like an official documentation online. And when that happens, we try to go to an expert next. We get as official as we can with those sources, but at the end of the day, we might just be providing best practices and recommendations based on what is practiced in the industry. Next, we've identified the checks that best align with ObservePoint capabilities. So some of these frameworks could be massive. They could consist of hundreds of checks and requirements. We try to distill it down to what is really relevant for web governance and what's really relevant in the scope of what ObservePoint can track today. But you'll notice that in these frameworks, we actually do call out like processes and documents we recommend outside of the checks. If you look at the document, we do include things that you do outside of ObservePoint, like make sure to regularly, validate that you review the different. A good example in our privacy framework, our SIPA framework, is making sure you regularly review piggybacking tags, which is a semi-automated process. ObservePoint can provide reporting, but you do need to go through and review the piggybacking tags, and really scrutinize which ones are piggybacking off of others and which ones are approved by your own teams, your own organization. Okay, next, we publish frameworks in help docs, and I'll talk in a minute about how we're going to advance that. But for now, these are available in our help center, help.observepoint.com, and we'll walk through that today. We'll show screenshots and actually use the document today. And then we have recently added report templates to the ObservePoint gallery. So Macy just talked a minute ago about the new UI change to reporting menu. And the gallery reports are going to include these templates. And we actually have, I think, probably around 25 templates that are related to frameworks that are already pushed to the gallery that you can access today, and we'll demonstrate that. And there are more coming, a lot more coming. So it's actually going to be where most of you are going to start to interact with frameworks, I imagine, after today, is inside of a reporting gallery. So we'll touch on that here soon. There is more to come. So we are going to develop additional assets to go with each framework. And we're actually really excited about integrating frameworks into our platform more and more over time. So we envision a world of ObservePoint where you might have a new regulatory body produces some new requirement, and at your fingertips, we'll have a framework ready, and we'll also support or facilitate the creation of your own custom frameworks. So imagine you have, ObservePoint recommends 20 different checks that you do across your website. Well, maybe one of those checks is making sure that each web page has the largest contentful paint or a effective load time of under 3 seconds. And you might say, look, I really want to optimize for SEO, but we're just not there yet. And you can disable or mute that check temporarily while you work on it and come back to that later. Or you might be able to take a framework from a template inside of our platform and exclude just certain requirements that don't apply to you, maybe because you're nonprofit, or maybe because your organization, for one reason or another, your legal team has ruled that out as a risk. So there will be customization to these frameworks as we and what I'm alluding to now is that we're eventually going to productize this whole solution, the whole frameworks concept. And so that's why we're introducing it now because we're hoping that later this year and early into next year we'll have a frameworks capability in our platform. We want you to be familiar with how they were created. So let's keep going. How to find these frameworks? Again, the help site, help.observepoint.com. You can go there. You can search web governance frameworks or frameworks. You'll start to see a lot of documents come up. This is the frameworks menu, though, and we're going to actually share. I'm going to share this in a minute during our demo. I have a QR code on the right-hand side, which will take you right there. So if you want to pause, you can take your phone out, snap that QR code, and reference that. That'll take you to the menu. I'll also have, if we have someone from our customer success team on, drop it in the chat. They could drop a link there and we can reference it. But we'll be in the help docs today, spending some time there, and then we're going to demo in our product. So that's where you find them. There are many in development, which we'll show you here shortly, but this is where to get started. All right, Macy, next slide. Okay, demo time. All right. I am going to share my screen, actually, Macy, if you want to unshare. We're going to walk through two things right now. We're going to show you the, sorry, that's my family. Hold on, wrong desktop. There we go. We're going to show you the ObservePoint Web Governance Frameworks help doc, and then we're actually going to show you the reports and walk through a couple of the reports in our gallery. So as I scroll down here, the doc is designed to be the menu. So you have from here the introduction to the concept of frameworks. We have the frameworks themselves, the different categories of frameworks. And so far today, we only have web analytics and privacy compliance. We're going to be adding all these different framework types here soon. And you can see we have like a coming soon label next to the ones that we're envisioning building. But now is a great time, actually. I want you guys to be thinking at the end of this webinar, we're going to ask you which frameworks you want us to be developing next. And now you can drop in the chat now. You can drop them. You can save it for later, but definitely be thinking about that question. Which frameworks do you want us developing next? It takes a lot of time and research to build these and do them really well. But we're trying to do the most popular frameworks, the ones we envision our customers using the most. And also we're trying to knock out some easy ones too, because some of the most popular ones are taking longer because we need to really validate them with legal experts, for example. But we are really excited about it, and we would love to make sure we build the right frameworks for you. So the ones we have so far: Adobe Analytics implementation, Adobe Experience Platform implementation, Google Analytics implementation, and then we have a privacy compliance framework for CIPA, the California Invasion of Privacy Act. And each of these frameworks, you'll notice as you scroll down, there'll be other frameworks we're going to be launching in the coming weeks and months. But this is where we're going to start today. So from this high level menu, you can actually drill into one of these. So let's go into the Adobe Analytics implementation framework. And it's going to give you an overview of the framework, talk about the different policies or categories of checks that we're going to be checking. As you scroll down, we'll have a little bit of guide about what these icons mean, some recommendations around scope and frequency for this particular framework, the best practices, and then we're going to get into the checks. Every check is a statement that we want to be true. So for example, under the tag health policy, there's a check for Adobe Analytics tags return a success status code. This is a basic hygiene for Adobe Analytics. You need to make sure they're returning a successful status code. That means that the servers are responding from Adobe saying, yep, we received your data. And here we have a very basic summary of what that means, why this check is important. And then we're going to show you three things. One is a report that links to the ObservePoint template gallery. And actually, just the past few days, I asked a team member to update these to point to the template. So if they point to if it opens like an unsaved report instead of a template with a full description and a name, that's because we're still updating these like literally as we speak. But you'll find this report inside of our gallery too. So if you just search pages with broken Adobe Analytics tags, you'll find it there. If you click on this link, though, it should take you to a report already filtered to pages with broken Adobe Analytics tags. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and click on it. And it looks like we did update the link already for this one, which is great. So you can see a description along the top, giving you details about why it's important. you have a title that's already a name already provided, and then you have filters already applied. And I want to call it one thing really important here is that when there's many of these checks, if there are 0 rows reported, that's actually great. That's a good sign. That means there were no broken Adobe Analytics tags in this instance. So, based on the data set of the account I'm currently logged into. But when it does populate the data, you'll see all the information you would need to act on that. So you'd see the tag name, the tag status code, which in this case would be Adobe Analytics, the name of the audit that was run. You have the page visit start time, so you have a timestamp um, to reference in case this was a recent, to make sure this was a recent scan. And then you have the URL itself where you can go in and act on it. You can, of course, bring in more columns if you wanted to add them to this template. Maybe you have your own opinion about what other data would be useful to have in context. So go ahead and drop that data in, select those columns and hit save. And now this report is yours. We just gave you the template to get started. Okay, so that's one check and one report from a check. Every check is also going to have a link to an implementation and remediation guide. Most of these are already completed and built out for you. If they aren't yet built out, that's because we're actively writing these implementation guides. So I'm going to go ahead and select this one. It's going to take us to an implementation guide and remediation guide. So if I scroll down here, it's going to talk about how we implement this in ObservePoint, recommendations for this check. So creating an audit, making sure you use our pre-built report that we just mentioned, and then there's some other recommendations around our ClickOut Plus functionality and creating journeys. You can see a guide around the common failure status codes, information there, and then how to remediate. So there's a lot of common causes for a failed status code for Adobe Analytics, and we're going to provide all our recommendations around that in a basic conclusion. So for each check, we try to go deep on the resources, or the guidance and the interpretation of that check. Last but not least, there's a source citation. And I actually think generally you're not going to see ObservePoint as the source. In fact, I think we did find an official source. We'll probably swap this one out. But most of the sources for Adobe are going to come from Adobe Experience League. And most of the sources for our privacy frameworks are going to come from the California code, the actual laws. So we're going to always, always, always reference the highest authority source possible. So you can click into here, for example, and you can see, okay, there's no console errors related to Adobe Analytics tags. If you click into this document, it's going to take you to Adobe Experience League where it's going to talk about the importance of making sure you don't have these errors. Okay. So again, every check is going to have, where possible, a template report, an implementation remediation guide, and an official source citation. All right. As I scroll through, you can see this goes on and on and on. Eventually, you're going to run into some more advanced checks that require a little bit of additional configuration. For example, Adobe Analytics tags capture campaign tracking codes. The good news is this doesn't require a lot of additional configuration, but it does require some. It requires some input from you. What is your company or your organization's campaign tracking code format? Do you use CID equals in your campaign tracking codes? Do you use something custom? Do you use UTM parameters? So we just need in the remediation guide and the implementation guide, it's going to talk about how to take a report and modify it slightly so that it fits the particular tracking code parameter that you use in your organization. If it requires a little bit of input, we're going to make sure to basically denote that with this little configuration icon or emoji here. So just keep that in mind as you look through here. If you see something, you're like, okay, that does look a little more advanced. Some of them are more advanced, some are simple. And our customer success team is here to help you with all of it. So please lean on our team if you're struggling with any of these or if you have questions about any of the framework items. So I'm going to scroll to the bottom and call out the documentation processes section, which I referenced earlier. So we recommend, based on best practices from Adobe, and Adobe recommends, creating a business requirements doc, creating a technical spec doc, creating and maintaining a solution design reference or an SDR, and maintaining a taxonomy guide. And then there are certain policies like making sure you don't add tags to your website unless they are well documented. So we'll provide a sample of documentation processes. We understand that there's Adobe practitioners and experts and consultants that could come up with 100 more different best practices, but we're going to provide the basic building blocks, and we'll let you talk to one of those consultants or longtime practitioners if you want more advanced recommendation or advice there on process. But that's framework. So let's go into the platform. I want to show you how we've started to implement this in our platform, and then talk a little bit about what's coming near term and long term. So If you go into the ObservePoint reporting interface today and you're in our gallery reports, you'll notice that we have this new really snazzy search bar. And when you search for something, you'll see we come up with multiple search types you can select. But if you just do the general search type and you type in Adobe Analytics, you'll find our Adobe Analytics frameworks. They're all labeled framework reports. They're all labeled with new because they're recently published, and you'll see each of them here. So I can see pages that lose query parameters after redirects. This is one of our checks that we recommend. Pages with the broken Adobe Analytics tags, each of them having a nice description, and each of them having that new label. So they also have a use case label and a report type that you can see what type of report I'm about to drill into, which is convenient. And it's just one click away. So if I want to find all the pages missing Adobe Analytics, well, let's find them. I actually did a sample of several Fortune 1000 companies, so you're going to see some web pages here. And also, it's super important to understand the context. So, like, I brought in an audit name specifically so you can make sure we're not looking at like a privacy audit. So, for example, here I have a GPC enabled audit where we actually don't expect Adobe Analytics to be firing. So, I just want to call that out. But here's what the results will look like when you have Adobe Analytics missing. If you go back to that reporting gallery, we'll remember that filter and you can click into another report. So my recommendation, if you're an Adobe person, Adobe Analytics expert, and that's your whole focus with ObservePoint is this use case, go in here, click on every report, save them, and share the insights with your teams. Now there's anyone in the Adobe world is also concerned about Adobe Experience Platform migrations. They're either going to hit you now or they're going to hit you later at some point as a priority. And so we've done the same thing. We've taken the Adobe Experience Platform checks and we created a framework, and you can see those in here. There's some slight differences between this one and the other framework. For example, in this one, instead of using report suite IDs, there's data stream IDs. But is also a lot of good overlapping material as well. A lot of the checks and principles apply here, and they will apply for Google. So you can search for Google Analytics, and you can find the Google Analytics framework checks. Last but not least, I'll do the SIPA one. There's only one report type for SIPA because a lot of SIPA requires advanced configuration, but the most basic and important check is pages with SIPA noncompliance. And for this one, we actually have a California location and we have pre-audit actions, so not configured. So this means when they go to California and there's no pre-audit actions, no interaction with the cookie banner or with the page, what actually happens? So what technology they see. And you can see there's actually some, as you scroll through here, there's like help pages or news pages. And some of these are, if you see here, we have a tag category filter we've applied and we've made it really broad. Some of these are you can actually rule out. Like for example, like analytics is pretty debated in the SIPA world. There's some people that say, okay, analytics is okay, depending on how you implement it and configure it. So just know that. But also we are, make sure you're looking at recent data too, and make sure that you are using audits with the correct, just the correct configuration. Make sure you're using that California location. So if your website, I would go and click that and find out how your website's doing, how it's performing, and if there are pages with SIPA non-compliance risk. Even if ObservePoint has some risks that we need to go and address, and most organizations are like this too. So keep that in mind. I want to also call out again that you can save these once they're in your saved reports. You can reference them. You can share them with different teams. You can favorite them. You can add labels now, like Macy said, so you can add a label for a framework. I strongly recommend that after you save it to provide a label to help you keep track of what reports are in which or pertain to your framework. And then if you do that, you should be able to just search for the word framework, and you'll find it very quickly. Actually, I don't think I've used that label yet, so we'll have to start adding it. So I actually have a SIPA or AEP as my label. But that should make it easier to find this information when you're coming back to reports. Okay.
Yeah, quick question from Tyrone that relates to this, Dylan. Tyrone
Yeah.
asks, any thoughts to providing an overview or dashboard for the framework results? Um, and I think that relates to, yeah, having an organized way to see all of the actual results related to the frameworks you're working on. I think labels, for one, is a great methodology for you guys to customize any of the, because there may be some of the reports we point to in frameworks that for whatever reason have nuances that make them less relevant to you or more relevant to you. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think using labels like Dylan just showed, as well as we do soon have dashboards coming for our charts as well. I haven't actually seen that, Dylan. I'm not sure if you know in regards to like folder structure, having various tabs for various dashboards, or maybe how our dashboards could help with frameworks as well.
Yeah, it's a great question, Tyrone, and absolutely it's coming. There's kind of I'm going to get into this in a second about like where we go from here. In fact, it's probably a good time to jump to that. There's a couple things near term we're going to be doing with frameworks, and a couple things kind of mid to long term. And I'll talk about the near term first. So one of the things I think Tyrone, this came up with your with your call with Jake recently, and feedback came from others is we want to make these frameworks easier to find. So we're actually in this next sprint we're adding a frameworks filter type. So you'll be able to search for, you'll see instead of report type or report name or use cases, you'll see frameworks as an option. You'll be able to pick one of the 4 frameworks we have published so far. And we'll be adding more frameworks. Most of the time you can search Adobe Analytics, Adobe Experience Platform, Google Analytics, or SIPA, and you'll find all the reports. But there are some cases where the report name doesn't have the name of the framework in it. And so if you're missing one like underscore GA cookies, need to be on every page. That's a Google Analytics framework check. If it doesn't show up right now when you search, it'll be available soon under a frameworks filter. So just keep that in mind. So that's near term. One of the very, very near term things we're adding is a frameworks filter, and that's going to make it easy to find these. Next, dashboarding is huge. So we are adding additional report types over the next couple of months, but we're also adding dashboarding. And so dashboarding is basically just taking and dropping all the charting capability into a dashboard, and you can have it available in tabular format or in a visualization format. So imagine a world where you have this dashboard set up with each of the framework checks, and it could be a count of the issues pertaining to a check, and you could have the table and reference as well with all the list of issues. So if that count is greater than 0, let's say I have more than 0 pages that are missing a required cookie for the Google Analytics framework, then I'm going to see those pages and be able to click into them and export them. We are also planning when we do come out with dashboarding, I believe the vision is to include templates. So one of the templates of a dashboard could be the framework, like an entire framework template. So you just pick the dashboard template that has the pertains to the framework that you care about. That's where we're going to go with dashboards. Dashboards will be really exciting. It's a great place to aggregate the information. In the meantime, I have some customers that are requesting we aggregate it now and not wait and create some kind of report card. So Tyrone, we'll put you on the list of people that are interested in a report card. If other people are interested in that, let us know. That's something we can provide while our engineers are developing our dashboarding capability. So absolutely needs to happen. We need to join all the results of the frameworks into one place so you can just see it in one snapshot. That's where we're going for sure. Longer term, and by the way, dashboarding is about Q3 of this year. Frameworks as a fully integrated experience in our platform is going to be around Q4, where we think we can provide an awesome experience for building, maintaining, and seeing the results of frameworks that way too. So there's a lot more coming there. We're still very much in design phase there, so I don't have too much to share, but it's going to be a big focus of ours this year. So hence we're having this webinar today. Great feedback, great question. Are there other questions from the audience, Macy, or anything from the chat?
Currently, Tyrone responded to that. Dylan, he says, currently for frameworks, I need to go into each report to see the results. Would be great if I had a way to see a rolled up view of the results so I can
Mhm.
decide where to go for a deeper dive, similar to what's shown for audits today.
Yeah, Tyron, we're gonna build like a report card for you, and we can do it with. I think we can do it like with live, like make it as close to live data as possible. So I think let's have a discussion offline about that. And if others are interested, please share in the chat or reach out to Macy and I. You can find me at Dylan at observepoint.com or Macy is macy.bell at observepoint.com. Please email us, and we'd be happy to work on that or contact your CSM, of course. So, but great feedback. That's definitely the direction we're going and the feedback we want to hear. We want to make the findings easy to act on. So I'm going to go ahead and um, unshare. And then Macy, let's have you go back to slides. Okay, so what's next? I did talk about a lot of what's next, but I didn't mention one thing, which is the frameworks that are in development. So CCPA and GDPR are very high on the list of frameworks we want to build out. site health, so checks like optimal load times, um, making sure you have good page status codes, no broken links. All those things will be part of a framework, which will be really easy to point and click to in the reporting interface to grab those reports. HIPAA compliance, another one that is a high priority for healthcare. We want to provide as much support there as we can with HIPAA compliance, and then many, many more. The you saw a list of the categories, so there's other categories like SEO. Um, we had AIO, which were as soon as we can see that mature enough. There's honestly very difficult to research in that because there's no one really wants, none of the big tech companies really want to spill the beans on what makes a website recommended or recommendable, more recommendable than others, other than making sure it's indexed and kind of known by LLMs. But there's still a lot to be done to be matured there as far as like domain knowledge. But in the meantime, we're going to develop a lot of these core frameworks first, and we'll get to some of those other ones that are high value but not yet established or mature later this year. We hope so. The again, if you have a framework that you're just dying to see, like I want to see like the expert guide to implementing this or to complying with this regulation or implementing this technology, we want to hear about it. So please share that in the chat. If you have questions about kind of direction or vision with frameworks, love to talk about this as well. We can talk offline, or I have time. We have time here in the webinar. Macy, we have one more item I think before we wrap up, or a couple more.
Oh,
So real quick recap. Um, there we go. Frameworks are a strategic roadmap for implementing ObservePoint. Documentation is found at help.observepoint.com. The reporting gallery has templates for out-of-the-box ready reports. And stay tuned for more integration of frameworks in our platform, including the frameworks filter, which will be coming in just a couple of weeks. I have, again, that call to action or that invitation to you. Which framework is your highest priority? I'd love to know. I have in developing the Adobe frameworks, we consulted with the Adobe customer success team and got their feedback and solution consultants. In developing the privacy frameworks, we were working with privacy consultants and experts. So and probably will be consulting with lawyers. The At the end of the day, the frameworks, I need to add that like asterisk, I guess, that like none of it is considered legal advice. You can consider it a recommendation, a best practice. And then we'll also point to again those high authority sources. So and we'll let you and your legal teams make that judgment call. But we're providing as much as we can a strong recommendation and helping you interpret what's generally good and bad practice. So please share those in the chat. There's Macy, go ahead and click one more time. I think there's the title of this one. There we go. PI detection. So one of the topics that pertains to privacy and is super important for our customers is PI detection. This isn't necessarily directly related to frameworks, but we are developing, have plans to develop a really amazing PI detection solution. And we want to recruit your feedback, include your feedback, and recruit you in helping us make sure we deliver incredible products. So if you can scan this QR code, fill out, I think it's like an 8 or 9 question Google Forms survey. It'll help us understand how to best build this solution for you. We know there's a lot of interest across um, lots of organizations around PI detection, and we think we're ready to build something super awesome and would love your support there. So go ahead and scan that with your phone or talk to your CSM after this call, after this webinar, and they'd love to talk to you about it. So appreciate your feedback there. Okay, Q&A. We save some time at the end of these sessions always for Q&A. These also will be one of the questions that's super common is, will this be recorded? Will it be available? Yes, it will be available on our YouTube channel. And we'll have a video hosted at on observepoint.com under our resources. But YouTube is a great place to go as well. If you have questions or have trouble accessing the recording, just reach out, and we'd love to help. So we had a question come in from Jessica. Jessica, can you drop the PI detection survey in the chat, please? Yes, I think we can. Let me search for that now since I'm not sharing my screen. I think I can grab it for you. Give me 1 second. I have so many tabs open, but I should be able to find it. Great question, Jessica. I will provide it here in just a moment. Okay. There is the link to the survey. One of the questions at the end is would you be, I think it's the very last question. It just says, hey, would be open to us having a 30-minute interview on Zoom with our product team? So if you guys are really, really interested, you're welcome to check that box. You don't have to, it's not required. But our team would love to even hop on the phone with you and get your feedback on what they're designing and building. So really, really cool stuff. It's very, very near term on our roadmap. But one of our blockers is we're just in design and making sure we get all the requirements just right. So the sooner we can get feedback from customers, the sooner we can build it. Um, Great question. So any other questions while we're here? Jessica had a question about reports. Let's see. Pages with Adobe Analytics capturing non-ASCII characters. I see several of our Korean, Japanese, and Chinese language pages appearing in the report, which I would expect is the outcome. Is that the outcome you would expect? What do I need to know? Great question, Jessica. So I've talked to data scientists on this topic, gotten their feedback on it, and generally it's best practice to uh, have these values that you're capturing in English and have English be the standard taxonomy across all of your analytics reporting. Um, and the reason why is if you actually go into the implementation guide there, Jessica, it's going to tell you about the risks with data analysis using non-ASCII characters. The even on Japanese and uh, like Korean or other sites that use non-ASCII characters, you're going to find that typically data analysts or digital analytics implementers are using English. A good example is you go to apple.com. If you go to any of their language sites, you're going to see that they use English and capture English characters in analytics. The reason why is there are really bad downstream consequences to having non-standardized, non-ASCII characters, and it could corrupt some of the analysis that you do. So, if you have more questions on there, check out the guide. You can research this a little more on AI with AI as well, using a large language model. I'll give you some more tips on it. But that's if anyone else has an opinion on that too, you can share it in the chat today. But that tends to be best practice for implementing analytics. Great question. All right, with just a couple minutes left, if there's any more questions, drop them in the chat. We'd love to answer them. If not, super excited to see who wins the World Cup, and we'll have to see who wins their bet. I don't know if anyone's doing brackets this year, but I didn't know that was a thing. I'm used to like US has like a March Madness bracket challenge, but this year I think I'm doing a FIFA World Cup bracket challenge. We'll see how that goes. So,
Yeah, my brother just put together a
Macy, any
homebrew
comments?
tournament. Oh, yeah, can you hear
Oh,
me?
you're muted, Macy, I think.
Oh, really?
I'm not hearing your audio come through.
Um,
Oh, Patrick can
oh,
hear you. It
okay,
must be on my
Patrick can
end.
hear me. Yeah. Okay, looks like everyone else can hear me. So yeah, I was just saying my brother actually cooked up a homebrew bracket, and so he's tracking, and my dad just last night was pestering him like, you got to give the live results after every single game. And my brother's like, I am literally doing the math for every single game. I can do this like weekly. So I currently don't know my standings. My brother and I are the only two soccer players in my family, and we are both so far in last place though, from what I know. And my 5-year-old nephew, I think, is in first place. So
He's a prodigy. I
yeah, I
figured out
guess it
my
takes youth to understand the game.
I figured out my audio. Thank you for Patrick for letting me know. You guys could hear. So grateful. And Macy, sorry if I talked over you. I bet I did a second ago. So,
No, that's okay. I
um,
have one question that may be helpful on behalf of some people that are here in this call, Dylan.
sure.
So these frameworks are essentially step-by-step walkthrough guides, including links into ObservePoint with things that we can accomplish in the platform. I know some people on this call may be aware that we are developing an MCP server so that you
Mhm.
can send AI to work on and interact with the actual ObservePoint platform. Curious to hear your thoughts if we can pass AI one of these detailed walkthroughs, how much it can accomplish on its own using frameworks to then end up generating all the reports maybe somebody would want for these use cases.
Yeah. So it is super exciting that ObservePoint is developing an MCP server. The rumors are confirmed here this day on ObservePoint Tips webinar. And we're super excited about it. And we're targeting a near-term release end of July, early August. So it's going to unlock a lot of capabilities. It's absolutely going to change the way you interact with their platform. And as far as its ability to um, implement frameworks, it's gonna facilitate. So some of the frameworks I mentioned come with like some advanced configurations steps. I think it's gonna be really effective for that. For example, taking one of the checks was making sure that you identify pages where your campaign tracking code parameter is not surviving redirects. Well, we have a generic query parameter, survival report. And there's some additional configuration required to make sure your Adobe Analytics is capturing the query parameter that you've designated for campaign tracking codes. And that's going to require additional configuration. I think it'll actually do that job really well based on my initial testing. It's going to create audits super well. It's actually creating and maintaining journeys really well so far in our initial testing. We're kind of blown away by that. It's gonna, I think, I know there's like silent applause that you're not hearing right now because people are so excited about what AI could do for journeys, but that's going to be really game changing. And how I envision a world too where you could actually stand up an entire framework using the NCP server, but the challenge there will be again the human validation of the sources and making sure that we have high authority sources. So I could see a world where you ask it to create a framework for you or a series of reports that are pertain to a framework, and it's just gonna need you're gonna need research to validate it. That's gonna be the bottleneck most likely. So just got a question: will the MCP rollout be enabled for all customers by default, or is it opt-in? Good question. So we're gonna make sure the MCP server is actually completely interacted with outside of ObservePoint. So, and it's something that we don't intend to charge customers for or add costs to customers because it's something that we generally are going to interact within like Claude Code or Cursor or um, Google and Microsoft have their own flavors of those tools that they are developing and some are released but not fully, not like an exact comparison, but um, those are going to be available to many organizations. And we are going to develop, so the MCP server will be adaptable to any of those systems, the most popular ones first. The reason why it's so adaptable to those systems and we can support all those systems is because MCP has a very standard protocol that's very transferable. So for example, we're using Claude Code primarily day to day, but like Nick Suter, our manager of customer success, he is using Codex and he's able to take the same MCP server capability that we're developing and drop it into Codex, and he can use it. We do plan to host it, so it's not going to be a file you install, but it will be hosted. And more details about what that means and for you, the idea is we want to make sure it's we're pushing updates. You don't have to manage your own updates in the MCP server when we want to push those updates. So it's critical we host it, but that will be coming soon. We also in our roadmap, again near term, are planning on taking that MCP server capability and implementing a chat capability in our platform. So imagine within the interface of ObservePoint, you can say, I create a bunch of audits following, these particular requirements, or create a bunch of reports for me based on a framework that you developed, right? And it's going to be able to handle those types of requests. We're also going to make sure it's very intelligent as far as best practices in web governance. So expertise in Adobe Analytics or privacy compliance, the same type of thing you would imagine like an LM could do. But again, we're going to try to ground it as much in real high authority sources. So um, will it be like enabled or not? When it's available in our platform, it will be a feature that needs to be. We know customers are going to require that we have it be disabled by default, and they'll let you opt into it. And the reason why is some companies are very sensitive about security and AI tools. They need to get approvals. So I think that's the heart of your question, Jessica. Just want to make sure I clarified that.
Yep, she just followed up with clarification
Yeah.
that was the intention. So,
Yep. Yeah. We won't be throwing AI. We've gotten enough feedback from, especially big healthcare and, financial services companies. They're like, yeah, we can't enable AI tools. And we're probably going to see that more and more. Like AI, I was in a text thread this morning with our executive team, and it's very much like a sentiment that AI governance is still so immature. Like people are, it's kind of the Wild West within some large companies because, and all of you know, I bet some of you are guilty of using a Claude Code license that you personally pay for because your company has not yet approved it, right? And maybe even doing productive work stuff. And over time, I think that's going to be, it's going to be locked down a lot more on people's machines and within company policies. And so we'll see where that goes. But we're very sensitive to that. I want to make sure we're compliant. And if you guys want to go through that process of getting approval or going through a security review accelerated, because we know it could take sometimes weeks and months, then talk to our team now. Go reach out to your customer success manager and say, hey, let's start the process. And I think at the very least, it'll educate our team on what are the most commonly asked questions, and we can provide work on answering those questions now instead of answering them later. So if you're super excited, can't wait to get your hands on it, go ahead and reach out to your CSM, and we'll have you happy to work through that process with you. Any other questions on MCP frameworks or the World Cup? Okay, if not, please reach out to your customer success team. I saw one last comment from Jessica. Let me respond real quick. We've always treated MCV cookies as targeting, but in your description, noted as essential. Can you talk more about how others are approaching? It's okay, Jessica. You can ask this last question. Well, if you think about AMCV is basically that cookie is like um, it is the key ingredient to stitching together different sessions and different and building profiles for users. So by nature of that, it could be considered non-essential, right? Um, that could be how people interpret it. And the framework for Adobe Analytics is not about really categorization. That one's actually it's not about privacy. It's about making sure you implement Adobe Analytics as Adobe Analytics should be implemented to maximize the value of Adobe Analytics. So just keep that in mind. Like the two frameworks don't meld together. Like our Adobe Analytics framework is not about how to become more compliant or how to like properly categorize this information. Um, it's about how the best practice, what is the best practice for implementing Adobe Analytics. So, all
Yeah,
right.
so I guess you could say, Dylan, it's essential in the term of having success in analytics, but that doesn't mean from a compliance standpoint, it's a quote unquote strictly necessary cookie.
Yep.
But obviously for an opted in scenarios or depending on the region for some default scenarios where someone hasn't yet opted out, you would want to make sure that that cookie is consistently present. But yeah, it's very possible that in an opted out state, it's a different story because a lot of the times we don't even expect Adobe Analytics to fire at all in some cases in an opted out state.
Yeah. Yep. Great questions, everyone. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, everyone who participated today. Go, whatever team you're rooting for in the World Cup. We are excited to see where that goes and excited for your feedback on frameworks. Thank you, everyone, and have an awesome rest of your week.
Go Bosnia. That's what Jessica says. See you guys.
See y'all.